American soldiers executed over 300 unarmed civilians before lunch. Women, children, babies, and the United States Army buried the truth for a year. The village was called My Lai, a small hamlet in Quang and Ngai province, South Vietnam. Charlie Company, 1st Battalion, 20th Infantry Regiment, had been in country for 3 months by March 1968. They had taken casualties from mines and booby traps. They had never engaged the enemy in direct combat. They were frustrated, frightened, and on the morning of March 16th, they were told the 48th Viet Cong Battalion was hiding in that village. What happened over the next 4 hours would become the most documented war crime in American military history. But the full scope of what occurred and the lengths to which the military went to conceal it wouldn't emerge for 20 months. And when it did, it would shatter the myth of American moral authority in Vietnam. Captain Ernest Medina gathered Charlie Company the night before the assault. The men were told My Lai was a Viet Cong stronghold. They were told to expect heavy resistance. They were told civilians would be at the market by 7 a.m., so anyone remaining in the village was the enemy. What exactly Medina ordered remains disputed to this day. Some soldiers would later testify he explicitly commanded them to kill everyone. Others said he was ambiguous. But the message the men took away was clear enough. No prisoners, no mercy. Lieutenant William Calley commanded the 1st Platoon. He was 24 years old, slight in build, and had been a junior college dropout before enlisting. His men had little respect for him. His superiors had doubts about his competence. None of that would matter once the helicopters touched down. The company went in expecting a firefight. They would find something else entirely. The first soldiers entered My Lai at 7:30 a.m. They encountered no resistance. Not a single shot was fired at them. The village held mostly women, children, and elderly men. The young men were either dead, fighting elsewhere, or hiding. It didn't matter. The killing began immediately. Soldiers shot people as they emerged from huts. They threw grenades into family bunkers. They bayoneted those who tried to run. One group of soldiers gathered between 70 and 80 villagers, mostly women and children, and marched them to an irrigation ditch on the eastern edge of the hamlet. Lieutenant Calley ordered his men to push them in. Then he ordered them to fire. Private Paul Meadlow was crying as he reloaded his M16. Women were raped before being shot. Children were murdered in their mothers' arms. Bodies were mutilated. Livestock was slaughtered. Wells were poisoned with corpses. The village was systematically burned to the ground. By 11 a.m., it was over. The official body count reported to command was 128 enemy combatants killed. The actual number of civilian dead would later be determined to be somewhere between 347 and 504. Not a single weapon was recovered from the village. Not one American soldier was wounded by enemy fire. Warrant Officer Hugh Thompson was flying a reconnaissance helicopter over My Lai that morning. He saw the bodies. He saw soldiers shooting civilians. He saw a group of women and children being herded toward a ditch. Thompson landed his helicopter between the soldiers and the villagers. He ordered his door gunner to fire on the American troops if they tried to shoot. He radioed for help and evacuated the survivors himself, roughly a dozen civilians, including children pulled from the ditch who had survived by hiding beneath the dead. Thompson reported the massacre to his superiors that same day. His report went nowhere. The official army account of the operation celebrated it as a significant victory against Viet Cong forces. For speaking up, Thompson would be shunned, threatened, and vilified by fellow soldiers for decades. Congressman Mendel Rivers called him the only American who should be punished for My Lai. 30 years would pass before the army recognized him for his courage. He received hate mail until the day he died. The massacre should have been impossible to hide. Hundreds of witnesses, dozens of participants, radio traffic, photographs taken by Army photographer Ronald Haberle, showing bodies in ditches, burning huts, terrified children moments before their deaths. And yet the Army buried it. Colonel Oran Henderson was ordered to investigate Thompson's allegations. His report found no evidence of wrongdoing. The commanding general, Samuel Costa, accepted this conclusion without question. The official record stated that 20 civilians had died accidentally in crossfire. Case closed. The soldiers of Charlie Company went home. Some tried to forget, some couldn't. Some talked to friends, to family, to anyone who would listen. But for over a year, no one with the power to act did anything. Ron Ridenhour was an infantryman who had served in Vietnam, but not at My Lai. He heard the stories from soldiers who had been there. He heard them repeatedly from different sources, describing the same atrocity. In March 1969, exactly 1 year after the massacre, he wrote a letter and sent copies to 30 members of Congress, the Secretary of Defense, and the Secretary of State. Most recipients ignored it, but the Army finally opened an investigation. They had no choice. Seymour Hersh was a freelance journalist working out of Washington when he caught wind of the story. He tracked down Lieutenant Calley, who was facing court-martial. He conducted dozens of interviews. In November 1969, his first article appeared through the small dispatch news service. Within days, it had been picked up by 30 newspapers. Then CBS broadcast the photographs. Americans saw the bodies. They saw the ditch. They saw the face of a toddler moments before he was shot. The war would never look the same again. 26 soldiers were initially charged with crimes related to My Lai. Only one was convicted. Lieutenant William Calley was found guilty of murdering 22 civilians. He was sentenced to life in prison. He served 3.5 years under house arrest in comfortable quarters at Fort Benning. President Nixon intervened personally in his case. The conviction had sparked outrage, not at Calley, but at the verdict. Thousands of Americans wrote letters defending him. Free Calley bumper stickers appeared across the South. Governor Jimmy Carter asked Georgians to drive with their headlights on in solidarity with the convicted murderer. Captain Medina was acquitted. Colonel Henderson was acquitted. General Costa was demoted and stripped of his Distinguished Service Medal. That was his only punishment. He had overseen a massacre and its cover-up, and he lost a medal. The message was unmistakable. The lives of Vietnamese civilians meant nothing. The soldiers who killed them meant everything. The survivors of My Lai rebuilt their village. They constructed a memorial. They named the dead Nguyen Thi Tao, age 42, Trung Thi Lê, age 60, Le Van Dao, age 5, Vo Thi Lien, age 1. The names go on for pages. American veterans who participated in the massacre carried it with them. Some never spoke of it. Some became peace activists. Varnado Simpson, who admitted to killing 25 people, including a 2-year-old child, was haunted by nightmares for the rest of his life. His son was murdered in 1985. His daughter died by accident. He shot himself in 1997, leaving a note that said he had never had a single day of peace since March 16, 1968. Hugh Thompson returned to My Lai in 1998 with his former door gunner, Lawrence Colburn. They met the people they had saved, now adults with children of their own. The reunion was quiet. There were tears. There was something like healing, though the word seems insufficient. My Lai was not unique. Declassified records have since revealed that killings of Vietnamese civilians were far more common than Americans were told. What made My Lai different was that it was documented, exposed, and undeniable. It forced a nation to look at what its sons had done in its name. And in the end, that nation looked away.